not something associated with this place. What we encounter here at the cemetery are tears, crying, and expressions of grief. Have you ever seen someone expressing their grief? The sobs, the mourning and wailing can be gut-wrenching. How do you feel when you observe this? What can you say? What do you do? What can you do? Today, we are here with Pastor Shalva because in his line of work, helping persons to cope with grief is an absolute must. So, Pastor, how do you do it?
How do I help people cope with grief?
Yes.
Well, it involves first and foremost being there for them. Sometimes you don't even have to do or say anything except to just be there for the person.
So, Pastor, what do you say to a person who has been devastated by the loss of a loved one?
Well, I can tell you what you shouldn't say. You shouldn't say things like, get over it. Or you shouldn't say things like, I understand what you're feeling, because 9 times out of 10, you don't really understand what the person is experiencing. Every person grieves differently. What you should say is, I wish I knew what I could say to help you at this particular point in time, but whatever you need, just let me know and I'll be available to do it. Or sometimes you don't even have to say anything at all. Bring a meal, just visit, be available. Just sit sometimes and be present with that person. As a matter of fact, one of the Bible characters that most of us know is Job. And his friends showed up at his place when he experienced loss, and all they did was sit with him for 7 days. Sometimes that's what is needed.
When should a person seek help when coping with grief?
Well, most persons don't often seek help when they're coping with grief. What is important is when you are part of a community and you know that somebody's grieving, you go to them and you offer them help.
How can I help someone who is grieving?
Well, it's important to remember that grief is a reaction to loss, and we're in a grave site, so we're talking about loss by death. You have to understand as well that grieving can take many different forms. It can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be mental. So sometimes it's not always easy to know how to help that particular person. What is important for us to do is to ensure that we are available to that particular person. Just ask a question, call them, let them know that you are thinking about them, and then don't just call and then don't do anything. That's incredibly disingenuous. We should try to ensure that we honor our word. Whenever we call and promise to be available to help, we should do exactly that.
Is there hope to overcoming grief?
Of course, the goal of grieving is to get over the loss. And for those of us who believe in the coming of Jesus Christ, I offer this particular passage usually to persons who are grieving. The passage comes from 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 13 and 14. Paul says to the Thessalonians, "But I do not want you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning those who have fallen asleep, lest you sorrow as others who have no hope." The Bible continues, "For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so God will bring with him those who sleep in Jesus." So faith in Jesus is what gives us hope, especially when we are grieving.
Grief is a natural expression to loss. Generally, entangled with grief is a host of other emotions, such as sadness, loneliness, and heartbreak. But today, we want you to add laughter. Yes, laughter. Let me assure you that we are not going insane. We just don't mourn as the world does. Are you familiar with the phrase, "He who laughs last laughs best"? It means that the ultimate winner will have more glory than someone who seems to be winning for a time. In this life, when we lose our loved ones, it may seem as if Satan is victorious because death seems so final and the resulting pain unending. But that is not the truth. Far from it, in fact. Jesus' life is a blazing testimony that death is not the end. The resurrection is proof that even in the grave, he is Lord. So when it comes across as if Satan is enjoying a good laugh at our expense, remember that Jesus will have the final say. He will have the last laugh over sin and death. Isn't that exciting? Laughing doesn't even feel enough when I consider Revelation 1 verse 18. In it, Jesus says to the faithful, I am he who lives and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And I have the keys of Hades and of death. I feel like dancing, don't you?
Go on, girl. I think I'll join you. Woohoo! Jesus has the keys of death, and he has promised to lock out death from our experience forever. And we know from Revelations 3:7 that he who is holy, he who is true, and he who has the key of David, when he opens, no one shuts, and when he shuts, no one opens. So when death is locked out, it is locked out forever. Woohoo! Today, Jesus is opening the door to you and me. Walk in and enter into a saving relationship with the one who conquered death, the one who alone is the resurrection and the life. The next time you have occasion to come to the cemetery, go ahead and cry the tears of sadness produced by death. But remember to laugh. Don't forget to laugh. Okay, because who laughs last laughs the best. Claim the promise that those who mourn will be comforted. Laughter and joy unspeakable in heaven concludes our season of mourning.